So we're going to open a cylinder and pull some walls. We've got about a pound of clay already centered. We're going to make sure that it's gliding through our hands easily here, so we want it shiny, sliding through our hands easily. I opened with my middle finger. There's not a right or a wrong way to do this. Try different methods, watch different people open. Some people open with one thumb, some people open with two thumbs, some people open with multiple fingers. I do it with just one finger. I've got kind of a target here. The way I center ends up leaving a knuckle mark right in the middle. So I have both of my elbows anchored on my legs for stability. I have my hands connected, and I'm going to use that middle finger, and I'm just going to aim straight down. And I've got the wheel still going pretty fast, so I'm on a pretty high speed, pointing straight down. If it feels like it starts to get too dry on the outside or the inside, grab some water. Don't let it start pulling, because you'll pull it back out of center. So you want to shoot, depending on the kind of form you're throwing and how big the foot is that you want to carve. For this particular shape, I want to shoot for maybe 3/8 of an inch on the bottom, so I've got enough to carve a foot. When you think you're down there close enough, if you're not sure, especially in the beginning as you're learning, you can use your needle tool. Slide your needle tool straight down into the bottom. Slide your finger down the needle tool to mark where the clay ends, and then you can bring that up. And that's about where I want it. So I'm going to leave that. It's plenty to carve a decent foot in it later. And don't worry about the pinhole that it leaves. That's going to fill in a hurry. You'll never know it's there. So I've got my depth established. The next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to pull my finger straight back towards this outside hand. That's going to form the floor. So I'm forming the floor. Again, I'm keeping my hands anchored. So I'm pulling that inside finger straight towards this outer hand. The outer hand is putting counter pressure so that it doesn't pull it off of center. And if it starts to get dry, again, I'm just going to add a little bit of moisture. So what's happening on the inside that you can't see is this finger is just coming straight back, forming a floor. It's moving straight back towards my hand. And then I go back and forth a couple times to compress it and make a nice even floor. So I'm going back and forth a couple times. And I'm going to go in with my sponge here and clean that up a little bit. So this has formed the floor. So the next thing we're going to do is pull up some walls. It's called raising the walls, pulling the walls. Lots of people do it different ways. So experiment using, you can use your knuckles, you can use your fingertips. Basically what's happening is you're turning your hands, you're connecting them somehow, some way, anchoring them and turning them kind of into this caliper shape, and then you're going to pull straight up at a very steady pace and not pause, and that's going to force the clay into an even thickness wall. You have about 3 pulls to get the height that you want on your clay, and then there's time to shape it after that. So here's our first pull. I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to clean the extra water out of the inside. I don't want water sitting in there because that weakens the clay. Going to get less working time if you keep too much water on it. I've got quite a bit of thickness down here towards the bottom, so I'm going to really, you know what, I think I also have a little air bubble here. I'm going to pop a little air bubble here. And we're going to try and really grab some of that thickness off the bottom and pull that up to make our cylinder taller. So that's our second pull. And I'm just going to clean up the top here. If you keep this top lip a little bit thicker than the rest of it, it adds some strength during the working process too. So you can pull your walls nice and thin, but leave that top a little bit thicker, and you'll have a stronger piece to work on. All right, for my last pull here, I'm using a sponge on the outside and my fingers on the inside. And you can see the bulge of clay just working its way up. So we're thinning out that wall and raising it into height. And you may notice, especially in the beginning, if your clay wasn't completely centered when you opened it, or if there was an air bubble in it, sometimes one of the sides ends up a little bit taller than the other sides. So an easy way to fix that is good old needle tool. take our needle tool, come in from the outside. I'm right-handed, so I hold it in my right hand, and I'm going to put my left hand in the inside here. So I'm going to pick the lowest point on the lip, and I'm going to slowly move that needle toward the needle tool in towards my other finger, and when they connect, lift straight up. And then we can clean up that lip. First I use the sponge to get off any big chunks. And if this was going to be, say this was going to be a coffee cup eventually, I would want this top lip to be really smooth because the lip's going to be touching it, right? So this is a chamois. You can just wrap the chamois over the top and get a nice round shape and lose any hard edges there. You can also use this on bowls and slightly flare out, like if it was a soup bowl, you can kind of flare it out a little bit. So this is our basic cylinder. If you want it perfectly smooth on the outside, you can use your rib tool to smooth any throwing marks off the outside, or you can embrace those finger marks. That's just a matter of preference. So if I wanted to turn this into a coffee cup, I would cut it off of the wheel, let it dry, and then flip it over and trim it, and then add my handle. One last thing I like to do before cutting things off is I like to clean up the bottom with a wooden knife, just by cutting. First I come in flat along the wheel head, and then I go straight down, and it just loses that excess clay. You can see it's usually you can get it kind of off in one long string here. And there you go, like this, just pulls that extra string off, and basically it just makes less work to do when you're trimming. So that's the basics for a cylinder.